Welcome to Rauta. During these dark times when coronavirus is getting people off guard, making them ill, even killing them, what would be more fitting music for that kind of times but doom metal? Well, this album surely has a tragic story behind it, or at least some tragic events that led to making this album. Now, maybe this is actually a proof that sometimes these difficulties can make something tremendous things to happen. I don't know about that, but let's take a look on this 13th album by My Dying Bride called The Ghost of Orion. Now, people here on Rauta, you, that is, followers, audience, you know that it's not usually when I dive into doom metal, because it's almost always black and death, but come on. Proper doom metal has its place when we're talking about some high quality metal, and that's why I wanted to include My Dying Bride in these reviews, which just happened to arrive a little bit late, but make no mistake, I wanted to pave the way for this album to get it as quickly online as possible. Now it's time to stop and take a look at this artwork, which I find astounding. Now, I don't know what it is so much in this piece of art, but I think it is just top spot, bullseye piece of art to fit this album here, because it kind of captures the desperate feeling, the kind of a sadness that is totally surrounding the feeling. Really beautiful piece of art, something that I could imagine putting, on the wall if I had this as a painting. Down on the back side of the booklet we obviously have the traditional recording endorsements and whatever, so basically the necessary information people are always looking into. And then obviously inside we have these very poetic lyrics, very My Dying Bride style, if you will. And then obviously we have the lineup image here with nice atmospheric photos, not so much posing as so many other bands, but actually being very down to earth, very much also fitting the mood here. Now, I'm not gonna go into the details of these tragic parts, because I think they are in many ways mentioned throughout the interviews and reviews of this album. So in case you're gonna look into that, feel free to do. We are here merely to talk about the music and the atmosphere of this album. Now, let's take a look on the Metal Archive site for My Dying Bride, in case you've totally missed it, what it's all about. My Dying Bride started quite early on in United Kingdom, and as such it's one of those bands that have been most active in the fields of death and doom metal. Now, doom metal purists are one of the most form of pure people, peering about the genres, like what you can call actual doom metal and what is something totally different. And so often it is that you cannot have these certain elements in doom metal, well, that is if you want to call it doom metal, but you have to venture for other subgenres with this kind of music. And I think with My Dying Bride it's not so much a mistake to call them doom death, because even though it's been labeled, as you can pretty much see here, as a gothic doom metal band, well, they kind of started with what was labeled as doom death back in the days, that is early 1990s, when the first releases came out, and there was growly parts, as well as, well, at least later on, so much more focus on the clean vocals. Now, the band being here for roughly 30 years now obviously has changed in quite a few ways. Now, if you take a look at these early albums such as the Flowers with Us or Turn Loose the Swans, which were already kind of pioneering the whole subgenre here, well, the band started to develop, progress, evolve, whatever words you want to use. It's kind of clear that the band ventured to different paths. And I think their evolution has been quite logical. I mean, it's not like it stepped too much over the boundaries. It's not like it went to push those fences around too much, but always we're kind of shifting in so many ways. But in a ways, Circle is kind of a complete when you think about Ghost of Orion being the 13th album in this long list of releases, because after all, there are once again these growly parts, even though as just seasoning, and it's mostly just clean vocals. So whether we call it doom death metal or doom gothic metal, in my opinion, it really doesn't matter, because after all, it's good album. Now, with this new album, if we take a look at this member list, we can pretty easily to see that, there are some rather recent changes, like Neil Blanchard joining guitarist in 2019. And if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't part of these guitar works here because it was done kind of a different lineup earlier before Blanchard joined. If I'm mistaken, sorry for that, feel free to correct me. But also you can see drums as late as 2018. And basically almost everybody else except for Andrew Grayton and Aaron Stainthorpe being the original members, everything else has changed during the last 10, 13 years. And these are always very important factors when creating the certain sound and atmosphere with the band. And being in the turmoil of these changes, I think My Dying Bride has still managed to go through all the difficulties, all the challenges with this album, because this album is just beautiful. It's totally capturing the kind of a sadness and this certain despair what is surrounding, throughout the almost 60 minutes of an album. And even though this album has very lengthy tracks surpassing 10 minutes and so, it's almost at the same time being very, very kind of manageable, It's not like this kind of music even requires you to have some 3, 4, 5 minutes tracks, but it's always in constant motion, albeit in a kind of a slowish tempo, which then again kind of complements and is mandatory part of doom metal so often. But with Ghost of Orion, I think what really nails it is the atmosphere. Sometimes single lead guitar tracks might be like, okay, they are not that phenomenal, they are not that much a big thing, but when you just put all the pieces of the puzzle together, suddenly it becomes like, well, this is how it was meant to be. Maybe these members of old were meant to be gone, and it was meant to be these old members who were like putting all the pieces together, of course with the support with these, well, let's call them later members. Now everything from production values to the vocal range used here is just in place. It seems like this band just needed to have these evil tragedies, these challenges in order to make this album so whole. Now, I feel like at some points the sound could be more powerful, but then again it's not actually required, because now it seems like the balance has been reached. I surely don't know if this is the best My Dying Bride album ever, but I would go to make a bold statement, it's among the best. Definitely, because it's so pure, it's so beautiful, it's so well balanced, it's just, well, really, really nice album in the genre. And doesn't matter if you're a newcomer, or if you are an old My Dying Bride fan, or just random doom gothic metal listener, this album totally requires you to listen to it. And once again, this cover art is just perfect for this kind of music. So, without further ado, go do check out the songs online. You should be able to find at least some songs on YouTube. You will find this on streaming services such as Spotify and whatever. So clickety-click once again and do yourself a favor. Even if you kind of are loathe doom metal, at least give you a chance just by one track, and you will understand what makes this album so beautiful. Not the best of the year, I can already say that, because I'm usually not to this kind of music, but still, even such a doubtful guy as me, really nice work. My Dying Bride is back for good, and we are gonna salute it. Thank you for watching, see you soon, bye bye.